The story about Boris continues, and we are now in March 2014, and all I can say, welcome to the mud. The weather was nice, but my grooming place would be too dark for filming, so the star of the movie and we found ourselves standing out in the field in the mud. You can hear glop, glop, glop when I'm walking about. But before we start the movie, let's have a look at a couple of pictures first. Let's have a look at a few of the issues with Boris. His neck was not very thick over the top line. On the end of a long neck is a huge head. In his previous life as a trot horse, he had learned he could not lift his back in order to give space for his hind legs to step in and support and lift the front end. They end up sticking out behind the horse. This means the head at the end of the long spine is too far away from the support mechanism. Therefore, the horse is not able to support the head with help of a functional organization of his skeleton. To support and keep his head off the ground, he had to use the muscles in his neck more than normal. They were very, very tight, like knots. Both these photos were taken on the same day, and they show Boris standing in two different postures. Both are keeping his weight over the forehand. This is okay as long as the horse is allowed to stand still, but if he cannot change to a more sufficient posture to allow movement, it means trouble. The Equine Pathway Program, you may know it as the remedial program, and you find this on the Balance website. You can see the address on this page. But to quote what it says in it, it's a simple and versatile therapeutic program for handlers, riders and trainers to use in order to keep ridden horses healthy, sound and performing to their optimum. The EPP is also highly effective in aiding recovery from illness, injury from uncomfortable saddles, feet, etc., and the loss of natural movement or behavior through inappropriate training methods. Now, I would have liked to follow the program where it starts with walk in hand, but Boris, being so rigid and stiff in his body, keeping his head very high, I felt quite vulnerable standing next to him. He sometimes didn't see me, and when the head was up in the sky, he could easily swipe me off my feet. And in this state, the walk would not be helpful for his body either. So I had to start with something else to help him. In the first part of this video, you will see a very relaxed and trusting Boris. However, this was not always the case. He's the kind of a horse that craves love, but does not always allow anybody in. He would sometimes react as if you were to hit him with a grooming brush. It can feel quite reactive when all you want to do is to do a gentle grooming. But I should of course not take this personal. The combination of mistrust, spookiness and not being comfortable in his body made it more complicated to help him. Quoting the EPP again. The EPP works on many levels, from the physical movement and posture of the horse, through the reprogramming of nerve pathways and movement patterns that had become corrupted and out of sync. Working the horse during the Equine Pathway program seems to create and or strengthen the bond of trust that the horse has with his person. And I can personally quote and vote for that. The ridden horse will need to stay straight in his body. His spine and neck is not bending more or less than the track you are riding on. To help Boris to rediscover the mobility of his rib cage, I had to gently ask him to yield for pressure from my hand. When I first started this, he could only maybe do 2 yields on each side. The first few times he did not yield in his ribs at all, but swung his neck and head towards me. So I had to help him, staying straighter in his neck, and soon he started to yield and softening in his ribs. When the horse is yielding, he shortens the side he yields away from and lengthens his other side. When Boris discovered he could move his ribs, he soon relaxed and softened in his neck too, and thus got a natural bend of same degree as his spine. So here we are in the mud, and I'm working with Boris here using mag buoys, which is actually magnetic balls that you just gently massage your horse all over the body on soft tissue. So no, not over bones, but soft tissue. If you're interested in them, contact me. I can tell you how you can get them. And as you can see, Boris is very relaxed, nearly falling asleep here. So it's a good result. And then finally, before we go on to the next phase of our training, I just want to show you the rib swings, and it's just the slightest pressure from my hand, not strong at all, and you just want your horse to gently yield away from that pressure. And trot on. We skip forward to June the same year, and Boris and I had started to do a bit of lunging, and I really wanted to have a record of how he chooses to move before we had done any specific training. But my cameraman was nowhere to be seen, so I had to solve this with just using my phone to video record. That means I had to lunge Boris with just one hand. So obviously I could not assist him and help him. So what you see here is really raw. But it is how it was. And you can see on his forehand, it's going very fast, and head is to the outside, and basically totally unbalanced. The horse on the forehand will pull himself forward using his shoulders and front legs more than using his hind legs and hindquarters to lift, support and to propel himself forward. You could say it's a little bit like watching a human using a Zimmer frame. So the Zimmer frame is lifted up, moved forward, then put down on the ground, and then the legs are moving. A small child learning to walk will need something to hold on to, and quite often that means an adult person. Now the adult doesn't hold on to the child in order to keep the child upright, but you are a support that if the child is losing his balance, he can hold on to you, or you just steady the child. The better balance the child gets, the less support he will need, until finally he can walk upright without support. Boris and I had to find out exactly how much support he needed in order to find a better balance and organization in his body. And the first extra piece of equipment I put on him was a pair of reins, and they were attached, as you can see, to the saddle and then to the cavesson. You can see the odd step where he's moving quite nicely, but it's not consistent and he can't hold the balance very well. And I think he needs even more help than these reins can give him. The quality of the contact is probably not perfect, and the length of the rein is not perfect either.
Trot on. Oh, slow. That's a good boy.
I have to remind you that I'm still using my smartphone while filming. So one hand holds the phone, the other hand holds the lunge rein and the whip. So I can't give him as much help as he really needs to do a good trot or walk on the lunge. However, I have started to use the easy reins here. It's a rein that's developed by Balance International, and it's one of the best training aids I own.
And slow, a
And
little bit
it
slow.
gives the horse a very elastic, positive feeling in the contact, and that's the kind of feeling you really should aim at giving
and
the horse
slow.
when you
Slow,
ride.
slow, slow, slow. And walk.
Okay, the support in the front end was taken care of by the easy reins, but I still felt he could have a little bit more help with his back end. His hind legs were not quick off the ground, but with using a body wrap, which is basically two elastic tail bandages, you sew them together so you get one long bandage, and then you use it in a figure of 8 around his body. Most people I come across don't like to watch themselves on videos, but I have found it's a very useful tool. You can assess yourself, your own seat and your leg position when you ride, and especially when you do lunging or work with your horse in hand, you get to see the horse from a different angle. Working in hand, you're too close to the horse and you cannot always see what he or she is doing. So when I heard about the solo shot, I thought that is something I just had to have. Up till now, we have been working with a balance between back and front. Now it was high time to start to work with the lateral balance. You may remember from the beginning of the film, I was working with Boris and using my hand in the area where my lower leg would be if I were riding him, and get him to yield from a very light pressure. When he knows this, you can carry on and do the same thing while walking. As soon as this is fairly well established, I can go on to the next step, which here you see me working in a similar way, but now I'm further away from Boris and I had to extend my arm using a stick. The next step after this is to make the distance between him and me longer and longer. In the end, you should be able to lunge your horse, and when the horse is pushing his ribs or falling in on the shoulder, on the inside shoulder, you can just point with a stick, your lunge whip, to the area of the horse that is coming towards you, and he will then correct himself. And I was very happy with the result I got with Boris. His self-carriage was restored, and to see him walk and trot and gallop around in the field on his own in so much better organization gave me great joy. When I started this project with Boris, I always said that if I got to ride him, it would be a bonus. And we have to wait and see if I get that bonus or not. But most important for me with this work was to restore his own balance he was once born with.